The golden sun was just rising above the vast plains of the Serengeti, stretching its warmth over the endless grasslands. Birds filled the morning air with soft calls, and the world seemed peaceful, untouched, almost sacred. But deep in the heart of the savannah, near a grove of acacia trees, something extraordinary was about to unfold, something nature itself had never planned. A lioness named Nala, strong and graceful, roamed alone that morning. She had recently lost her cubs to a brutal drought that swept through the plains. For days she had wandered aimlessly, her body tired and her spirit broken. Her maternal instincts, however, refused to fade. Every cry of a young animal would make her ears twitch, her heart stir, as if searching for what she'd lost. That morning, as the first rays painted the land in gold, Nala heard something faint, soft, desperate whimpers coming from the thick bushes ahead. Instinctively, her eyes narrowed. It sounded like a baby, but not the cry of a lion cub. She crept forward silently, her paws barely touching the ground, until she reached a small clearing. There, beneath a fallen tree, lay a tiny baby gorilla. Its fur was matted with dirt, and its trembling body showed signs of exhaustion. Its wide eyes darted around, lost and terrified. Nala paused, confused. Gorillas didn't belong to her kind. They stayed in the forests, far from the open plains. Where was its family? The lioness sniffed the air. The scent of death lingered nearby. She followed it with cautious steps and soon discovered a heartbreaking scene. A small gorilla troop had been ambushed by a pack of hyenas during the night. The adults had fought bravely, but they were gone now, their bodies scattered near the trees. The only survivor was this helpless baby. For a long moment, Nala just stood there, torn between instinct and empathy. Her nature told her this baby was prey, but her heart, broken and aching from the loss of her own cubs, felt something else entirely. When the baby whimpered again, her heart softened. She stepped closer, lowering her head gently. The tiny gorilla looked up, its eyes full of innocence and fear, and reached out a trembling hand toward her muzzle. Something shifted inside the lioness that instant. She licked the baby softly, as she once did with her own cubs. The baby relaxed, resting its tiny hand on her nose. The bond was instant, unspoken, but powerful. From that moment, the lioness made a decision that would defy every rule of nature. She would raise this baby gorilla as her own. Over the next few days, the lioness carried the little gorilla gently by the scruff of his neck, just as she would her own cub. She took him back to her den, a rocky shelter hidden between tall grasses. She kept him warm, fed him scraps of meat softened by her own mouth, and protected him fiercely from vultures, jackals, and curious hyenas. The other animals of the plains began to notice. Word spread through the silent language of the wild, a lioness walking with a baby gorilla clinging to her back. Zebras lifted their heads in disbelief, antelopes froze in confusion. Even the lions of Nala's old pride watched from afar, growling low, unable to understand why one of their own was nurturing what should have been her meal. But Nala didn't care. She had found purpose again. As weeks turned into months, the gorilla, whom Nala seemed to call Kavu, grew stronger. He learned to walk beside her, to mimic her movements, even to roar softly when she did, though his roar sounded more like a strange squeak. He watched her hunt, watched her stalk silently through the grass, and though he couldn't hunt himself, he learned survival, how to sense danger, how to climb trees when predators were near, how to stay still when silence was needed. At night, Kavu would curl against Nala's belly, feeling her heartbeat. It was steady, comforting, like the rhythm of life itself. She would wrap her massive paw around him protectively, keeping the cold wind and prowling eyes away. In her presence, he was safe, but safety in the wild is never forever. One day, as Nala was leading Kavu toward the river to drink, a roar thundered from behind them. Her old pride had returned, led by a dominant male lion, fierce and territorial. He had seen Nala with the strange creature and decided it was time to claim both her and her territory. Nala's body tensed. She knew that look. The male lion would see the baby gorilla as prey, or worse, as a threat to his authority. She positioned herself between Kavu and the approaching lion, her tail flicking, her growl low and warning. The male snarled, circling. His mane bristled, his muscles rippling with dominance. He roared, demanding submission. But Nala didn't move. She stood firm, every inch of her body ready to fight for the life behind her. Kavu, sensing danger, clung to a nearby branch, trembling. He had never seen Nala like this, eyes blazing, fangs bared, every fiber of her being radiating both fear and fury. The male charged, the ground shook as two lions collided, claws tearing, teeth snapping. Dust rose, blood spilled, and the savannah echoed with primal rage. Nala fought with everything she had, but the male was stronger, heavier. He pinned her down, his jaws at her throat. Then something unbelievable happened. Kavu, the tiny gorilla, screamed, a sound so piercing, so raw, that every animal nearby froze. Without thinking, he leapt from the tree onto the male lion's back, clawing, biting, pulling at his mane with all his strength. It was an act of pure desperation, pure love. The lion roared in surprise, trying to shake the small creature off. That distraction was enough. Nala twisted free, lunged forward, and struck with all her remaining power. The male stumbled back, dazed and bleeding, and finally retreated, roaring in defeat. Breathing heavily, Nala turned to find Kavu trembling on the ground, exhausted and terrified. She approached slowly, nuzzled him, and gave a soft growl that almost sounded like a purr. He touched her face gently, his eyes wide with worry. In that moment, the lioness and the baby gorilla weren't predator and prey. They were mother and son. Months passed, the bond between them only deepened. Kavu grew larger, stronger, his silver, gray fur shining in the sun. Though he wasn't a lion, he had inherited Nala's courage. He learned to use his strength wisely, to protect rather than harm. Whenever danger lurked, he would climb high trees to scout for predators. He would even bring Nala fruits from the upper branches, a gift of love only he could give. The seasons changed, rains returned, and life bloomed again across the plains. Herds migrated, rivers overflowed, and the jungle on the edge of the savannah flourished. But nature's peace would not last forever. One fateful afternoon, a group of poachers entered the area. They had been tracking lions for days, setting traps for skins and bones to sell. Nala and Kavu were near the watering hole when the first gunshot rang out. Birds scattered, and the plains fell silent. Nala growled low, ears flat. She knew that sound. It wasn't thunder, it was death. She pushed Kavu toward the tall grass, urging him to hide. But Kavu, confused and frightened, refused to leave her side. The men approached, rifles raised. Through the tall grass, Nala saw their silhouettes. She roared, charging to protect her son. A deafening shot cracked the air. Pain tore through her side, but she kept running, her strength driven by pure instinct. She slammed into one of the poachers, sending him tumbling. Another raised his gun. Before he could fire again, Kavu leapt from the grass, landing on the man's arm, knocking the weapon away. The poachers panicked. They had never seen anything like it, a lioness fighting beside a gorilla. Shots fired wildly. Nala lunged again, protecting Kavu with her body. The men fled, terrified, leaving their weapons behind. When the dust settled, the plains grew quiet again. Nala lay on the ground, bleeding, breathing heavily. Kavu rushed to her side, whimpering. He tried to lift her, pulling her mane softly, as if trying to wake her up. She looked at him with tired eyes. The pain was unbearable, but she smiled, if a lion could smile. She had saved him once more, as she always promised she would. Gently, she rubbed her head against his and gave a soft, deep purr. As the sun began to set, her breathing slowed. The sky turned crimson, painting the plains with a melancholy glow. Her body grew still. The wind whispered softly through the grass. Kavu sat beside her all night, silent, motionless. He didn't cry. Animals rarely do, but the grief in his eyes said everything. When morning came, he stood up, placed his small hand on her paw, and walked toward the forest. The only home left for him. Years passed. Kavu grew into a massive silverback gorilla, wise and powerful. But unlike others of his kind, he never forgot where he came from. He would often return to the open plains, to the same rocky den where his lioness mother once lived. There he would sit quietly under the same acacia tree, staring into the horizon as the sun dipped below the grasslands. Animals would watch him from a distance, predators and prey alike. Knowing this was no ordinary gorilla, he carried the spirit of a lion within him. He never harmed, never hunted unnecessarily, but his presence commanded respect. When he roared, even the lions paused and listened. It was as if the soul of Nala still lived through him, echoing in his voice, and one evening something remarkable happened. As Kavu sat by the den during a golden sunset, a young lioness approached cautiously. She looked curious, not afraid. Kavu recognized her immediately. She bore the same golden fur, the same deep amber eyes as Nala once did. She came closer, sniffed the ground, then looked at him. For a brief moment their eyes met. In that silence, something magical passed between them, a sense of connection that words could never describe. Maybe she was Nala's descendant. Maybe nature itself had brought her there to remind him that love knows no boundaries. From that day, the young lioness often visited. They would sit together peacefully, side by side, two different worlds united by an ancient bond. And so, the legend of the lioness and the baby gorilla spread across the land. The animals spoke of it in their silent ways, a story of love beyond species, of motherhood beyond nature's rules. Even the winds carried their tale, whispering across the savannah every time the sun rose and set. Once, a lioness defied the laws of nature to raise a baby gorilla as her own. And though time took her away, her love left behind something eternal, a reminder that the heart of a mother beats beyond blood, beyond species, beyond the wild itself.